Want to know the painstaking history of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark? Need to know just how StarKid broke the internet? Do you need to talk about Bad Cinderella? If the answer is yes to any of these questions, you have probably already encountered Wait in the Wings, which is a musical theater nerd's favorite YouTube documentary channel. Today, I talk with Brendon Henderson about how it all got started, what's next for his channel, if he makes a living doing theatrical content creation, and how Broadway can better integrate with digital fandoms. Let's get into it. Hi, friends. I am here with Brendon Henderson, who you may know better as Wait in the Wings, fabulous, famed, nerdy, wonderful, theatrical YouTube channel. How's it going?
Wow. Great.
Let's start. Tell me at the beginning, like, how did this happen? How did you start making YouTube videos? Were you a theater kid growing up? Like, tell me how it all happened.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, ever since like kindergarten before, all I've wanted to do is acting or filmmaking in particular. It's really cool because I just found I got this old cassette tape that has been in the house forever that I had no way of watching, but I got this old camcorder for the channel to make it look like things are in the 80s. And I was like, oh, I could put the thing in there. And the whole thing is just me going around and I'm like chasing the camera, yelling up, up, which that was the only way that I knew how to say, give me the camera. And so it's been
from
forever,
a young age.
But
wow.
Oh yeah, forever. But then I went to college at Utah State University for the acting program there. I was in there, like they only took 12 people out of the country.
Wow.
6 guys and 6 girls. And so I made it in there. And then I was like, wow, this is not the direction for me. And
you knew in college, you were like, this is
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I was at
Good
like
junior
year of college, and I was like, I just want to be on the other side of things, and I want to explore different parts of the experience of the theater world. So I left the acting program and I just switched to a general BA in theater, and that's where really everything opened up. And there was this class that I took it was contemporary theater, and part of what I really loved about that class is before the class started, you were assigned, every person each week was assigned to give a little history on the shows and the background of the shows. And that was my favorite part of the class, because you never really get to see that behind the scenes part of it. And so I gave a presentation on Fun Home, which was just full circle when we did it on the channel, where I'm like, wow, this is what we started with. And so fast forward to after I graduate, and I was trying to figure out really, okay, what do I do now? Do I go out and audition? Am I going to do something else with this degree? And I had a podcast at the time that I was doing called Slate Your Name. And I was just interviewing friends and stuff, like friends and actors and all this stuff.
Amazing.
It was getting like 10 listens, which it was great.
Yeah.
And so I finally hit a point where I was just thinking, well, I need to go to New York and actually interview people who are like working in the field and all this stuff. But in getting ready for that, I was thinking, well, I don't have time to get an interview lined up before this trip. I know I'll do something really easy. I'll just tell the entire history of Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. And surprisingly, it was a lot more work than expected. But I just, as a throwaway thing, I was thinking, okay, we'll just upload this as a placeholder. And that podcast that was usually getting like 10 to 12 listens, this one shot up to 60 and 80. And it was just thinking, wow, well, maybe there might be something here. And I was working at a Texas Roadhouse at the time, and I showed it to some of my friends there, and they were saying, well, it's great, but I wish there was a video to go along with it. And so I've been making YouTube videos forever.
Like, what year did you start making YouTube videos?
Oh, 2009, 2008,
wow.
around there. Oh, they are some of the worst videos you will ever see.
Are they still up?
Oh, absolutely not. Oh no, they're all privated. Nobody can, only really close friends or Kickstarter backers. They got a little taste of one of them.
Oh, wow. They're in the vault.
Oh yeah.
They're in the vault.
For everybody who wants to see puberty Brendon singing Footloose, sorry to disappoint. Next year on Kickstarter, we'll do it.
So dear.
But they were
so
just
sweet.
they were some oh, it's horrible. I'm gonna lose. Oh, so bad. But so after I showed it to my friends at Texas Roadhouse, I thought, okay, well, let's give YouTube another crack. Like, let's give it another shot. And I really loved Defunctland around that time, which that's the theater history or the theme park history of these closed rides. And I thought, well, I wish all through college, I was thinking, I wish there was something like that for theater. And so I thought, well, maybe this is, if no one else is going to make it, I guess I can give it a shot. And now here we are. Oh my God, like 5 years later. And
well, that's what I was going to ask. When was your first
gig.
Wait in the Wings video?
2019, April 2019. It was Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. I just took that podcast and I just put video to it, and that was it. So
wow.
that one is a lot different from what the channel is now. Because also I was straight out of the I am so embarrassed by that video.
It's great.
But I was just so angry at the time. Like, I was so mad at the theater industry and like everything in it. And it just comes out really in that video that it's like, wow, you were really mad, Brendon. Like, the first 15 minutes, great. But then as soon as we get past consequences have actions, it just
goes downhill.
I have to turn it off. Yeah, I have to turn it off.
Turn off the dark. Did that one take off immediately? Like, talk about like your YouTube growth or the channel or whatever. If you went from like 10 listens to 60 listens, how did it go for YouTube?
Yeah, so YouTube, I was used to like 7 views. And I remember when Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark hit 100 in like a week, I thought, this is it. This is the top of it. Like, there's something here. And so then I kept going with it. I kept going. And then slowly but surely we kept getting a little bit bigger. And I remember it was, I want to say it was December of 2019 where we were getting close to that 1,000 subscriber mark, which that's huge. That's when you become monetized on YouTube. That's like, that is the pinnacle. For me, I thought if I ever hit 1,000, that'll be it. Like, I'll retire. And so as we were coming up to it, I set that I wanted to do this 1,000 subscriber Seussical live special. And we've set it for February. And as December rolled around, we were at like 600 subscribers. And I was like, well, we're not going to hit it. I don't think this is going to happen. And then I don't know which Spider-Man movie it was. I want to say it was Into the Spider-Verse came out. The first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And then sure enough, everybody picked up on that Turn Off the Dark video. And it was just overnight. That 1,000 subscriber special turned into a 10,000 subscriber special, which was just out of nowhere. It was very lucky. Yeah.
And wait, how long was that after starting? How long was that after you first published the Spider-Man video?
I'm horrible at counting. May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 8 months.
Wow.
8 months, and then it took off. Yeah.
Wow.
Pure
I'm
luck.
jealous.
I'm
almost at 1 year. And I'm like, ugh, I have 2,000 subscribers, but monetization is like but also I'm not making like full.
Is it the watch hours? It's the watch hours.
That's
that's where we were lucky because they were so long. Like we hit
awesome.
we hit that no problem, but it was just the
amazing.
subscriber count where I was like, come on, we're so close.
We got this. And you did. That's incredible. That's so cool. So how often are you producing these now?
Well, we went from back then it was like once a month. And now this year we're really starting with 3 videos a month. So really picking it up.
Wow.
Yeah. But that being said, it's not just me anymore. Like now there's a team involved that we're actually growing out because I hit a point over the summer last year where I was just so burnt out and I was like, it's just too big now. I can't do this alone. So now we've got, her name's Kylie. She just came on as a writer. My fiance, Juliana, is a writer, but then she also does some of the business stuff on the side. We've got Connor, who's doing the video editing for some things and some graphics. So it's expanding. Delaney, my wonderful assistant, who has been really helping get the interviews. That's been a huge game changer, is Delaney. So
that's amazing. What was the point where it was what was the point where it was like, oh, this is a full-time gig?
It was after there wasn't like a point where it was like, this is a full-time gig, really. It was just kind of like, wow, this job that I'm at is making me miserable. And it's so funny because if you look at the analytics, you can see where I started this other job that I had, because it just flatlines. It's like non-existent, because it was like one video every 6 months because it was so bad. And so finally I was like, well, I really love doing the channel. I can't imagine doing anything else with my time, because it's just, I love the mission, and I truly believe in the mission of preserving the history of these shows, because theater is just so finite and just so temporary that it's like once they leave, then there's nothing else there. So to be able to preserve that history, that was just something that I really believed in. So I quit that job. I got a job as a temporary bookseller at Barnes and Noble, where I would just like scribble on notepads like ideas for the channel. And then sure enough, the more time that I was focusing on the channel, it was like, well, I'm making more with the channel now than with this part-time. So I think it's just time to make the jump. And I said, like, we'll probably make it 6 months, but now we're going up on 2 years. We're coming up on 3, which is wild.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask businessy questions, and you can just be like, buzz off, or next question if you're like, I don't want to answer this. Cool?
Okay. Let's go.
I think you and Mickey Joe are the only 2 humans that I know who are working in theatrical content creation where it's your full-time job. And it's incredible and inspiring, and I marvel at it, and I'm envious. When I was talking with Mickey Joe, I was like, what is the model for this? Like, is AdSense doing it for you? Is it AdSense and it's brand sponsorships? It's a Patreon and a membership and what universe are y'all living in right now?
I mean, you basically hit it, where it's YouTube AdSense is a really big part of it, but then also getting those sponsorship deals, which it's once you hit a certain number of views that you're getting, like the sponsorship deals really are dependent on how many views your videos are getting. So like, for example, over the summer last year, where I had my burnout and we weren't making as many videos and the views weren't as high, it's like, no, nothing. But as soon as I got a hold on my life, then the sponsorship deals started to come back in. So it's sponsorship deals. It's the Patreon. The Patreon is a huge part of it, not just for the financial part, which it does play a huge part in helping us keep this thing going. But then it's also just having that community there, which is just so refreshing and so nice to have that emotional support there. And then let's see, and then the Kickstarter, we do a annual drive, like a fundraising drive, which that is another huge thing that's what helps keep the channel going, is that.
That's amazing. Okay, I have 2 follow-up questions for that. The first is, theater is essentially my hobby that I'm like underpaid for, even though it occupies like 98% of my brain space and time. And all the other things I do, I devote way less time to, but they offer way more money. And I feel like over the past decade, as I've been like trying to like equal that out a little bit more, part of the frustration that I run into is that selling things to a theatrical audience can be like incredibly frustrating. Fandom, however, I feel like is like this really expansive, incredible thing. And I feel like we really underestimate, I'm sort of blossoming this out right now, but we underestimate the theater fan. Like, clearly, as you have demonstrated, like hundreds of thousands of millions of views of people watching these like very intricate, super niche content. So like, clearly there is an audience there. So I guess the first question is, what kind of sponsors are like, yes, absolutely, a musical theater historical documentary, we would like to partner with you?
It's the type of people that you wouldn't really expect. It's like HelloFresh, Squarespace
really?
Is a big one. Yeah, it's like things like that. We get,
they're just like, you've got the views, you've got a community.
Yeah, but sometimes I have to say no, because I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like somebody came in with like I don't know how vulgar I can get on this, but like somebody came at me with like a sex toy ad, and I was like, what am I gonna do with this? Nobody's gonna take that seriously at all. Yeah. What do we do? I don't even want to begin to think about how what
like an Avenue Q tie-in somehow. Like, I have no idea.
I did an Avenue Q ad for Squarespace, and that was the first ad that I got rejected because it was too vulgar.
But
it's fantastic. It lives on the Patreon. Everyone loves it.
Nice.
But
nice.
It's just, you have to be selective with what the brands are. Like if it, like
Yeah.
HelloFresh makes sense because I know for myself when I was doing acting and when I was in the college acting program, I needed to eat, but I didn't have time to eat. So that made sense there. Morgan and Morgan, the lawsuit one, not really any connection to theater, but I just love doing those ads because you can do the most ridiculous stuff with Morgan and Morgan. It is my favorite one.
That's so goofy and so great. Can we talk about Patreon? I am not a Patreon user. Can you talk about the community, how you use Patreon, how it integrates with your channel?
Yeah, well, Patreon is really, that's our way of like breaking down the wall between YouTube and the fans because, you know, it's so easy to just look at the screen and you see the numbers, but you forget that there's actual people behind that. And so it really is, it's like Patreon is so exclusive that it's like if you join a Patreon at like a $10 plus tier, chances are we'll become best friends. Like I've had patrons come over and like cat sit my cats. Like I just really trust everybody over there. They come over for like New Year's parties and all that stuff. So it's really our way of connecting with everybody. We get insight on all the videos that we're going to make. We share behind the scenes stuff. All of my 50-page research notes that I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. I just post them onto the Patreon.
Wow.
Something really exciting that we're starting this year that we're coming up on our second month of doing it is we're doing like a speaker series. So everybody that we've interviewed for the videos, some of our favorites, we have them lined up to come and give like talks and do Q&As with the fans.
Cool.
So for February, we have Kristen Stokes, who played Annabeth Chase in the Lightning Thief musical. So she's going to come, and It's just a great way because when I'm interviewing these guys and these people, it's just they have so many great stories and you get an hour-long interview and then you have to cut it down to 2 minutes. You can only use 2 minutes worth of it. And so this is a great way to expand on that, which is really cool. So really it's accessibility and it's breaking it down the wall.
You just said accessibility and breaking down the wall, something I'm super passionate about in theater in general, especially because like Broadway, this thing that we love, is very, very expensive and often inaccessible.
Yep.
And like clearly you are reaching an audience that like may or may not live in New York City, may or may not get to see Broadway shows. Like, where do you feel like theater could go in terms of serving a digital audience? And like, how do you feel like you fit into that landscape?
Yeah, well, it's just such a tricky question because it's so hard with Broadway because it's limited to just one block, like one street in New York City. And I know because I went to school in Utah, I grew up in Utah in a 5,000 person town. And I was like, well, this is the only way that I can get access to theater and Broadway really is through like the internet and cast albums and all that stuff and pro shots, especially pro shots. So I think that it's just embracing the social media aspect of it, but then also making it's just so hard because everybody wants a pro shot of every show, but it's just so complicated and it's so difficult and so expensive to get these things made. And so I like to think that that's kind of how Wait in the Wings serves as kind of a buffer of you don't exactly get a pro shot, but it's a good way of exposing people to what your shows are on a wider scale.
Have you done partnerships with existing Broadway shows?
No.
Do you want to?
Yeah. Of course. Of course, that's the dream. But I think it's so tough with like new shows that are opening. For example, this is one you're close to, like Shucked. Like I would love to do something for Shucked, but it's kind of tough with Wait in the Wings because it's history. And so it's like, how do you tell the history of shows that are still on Broadway? But then, I'm a hypocrite when I say that because I've done it before. I've done it with Funny Girl. So, who knows? But yes, I would like to do stuff with like current shows, especially even if it's just the closest thing I could come up with is when Phantom of the Opera was closing and I reached out to the publicity office, that publicity group. They were so happy and so willing to like just say, here's 45 minutes of B-roll from the 80s. Here's some publicity shots and all this stuff. And it's like, that's great. So that's the closest thing I could come up with is like when shows are closing, if they could just have us come in and like preserve it just for a little bit. That's the dream.
How can Broadway be better with reaching digital audiences?
Hell if I know.
But I feel like
You're
you're such an
asking me
expert
a question that
you,
everybody's asking. I think the biggest thing for me is like it has to be organic. That's the thing that I've noticed a lot with shows like Beetlejuice, like Be More Chill. All of these ones is like what made them so big is that it came from a really natural place and a really just organic place of people who have a deep connection to these shows and share the videos because it's something that they really care about. And if there's one thing that people love, it's watching other people get excited about things that they care about. And so I think that's really one of the things that Beetlejuice leans into so well is embracing their fans and that individuality that comes from the shows. And so I think that's one of the main ways that they can keep going, because as soon as you get one person interested, then that fandom grows, and the power of fandom is so great that it can lead, hopefully, to ticket sales. Then it gets into an issue of pricing, and it's like, just because everybody can afford to listen to the free cast album, does that mean they can go and watch the show? Because that was another Be More Chill thing. I don't know. It's a tough thing. And it's like, just when you think you figured that out, then you haven't really. Thank God for tours. That's a good thing, is like tours.
I know. Yeah, it's something, I mean, everyone is thinking about it, but I'm definitely thinking about it every day, particularly as I'm trying to sell Gatsby. And that is like my day-to-day job. And it's like, how do you engage with fans, especially if they cannot get to New York to see the show? How do you still continue? Because like maybe someday they will. And like, how do you invite people in from all spaces instead of just being like, okay, well, only the people who can reach these 41 theaters within 5 blocks are the ones that we care about. No, I want to like, how do we get everybody involved in this, you know? And it's like, then I see things like your channel where I'm like, look at the hundreds of thousands of mega fans everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible because it was, I think, 2 years ago, probably 2 years ago, when we were filming this like Music Man challenge outside of Beetlejuice. After it was over, we went to the Edison because their bathrooms were open at the time. They're not anymore.
Rude.
But I was sitting in the lobby waiting for someone, and then this guy came out from around the corner, and he's like, "Oh my God, are you waiting the wings?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." He's like, I was like, "Are you in town for BroadwayCon?" Because it was BroadwayCon weekend. And he's like, No. I just flew in from Texas to watch Beetlejuice because I saw your video and I was like, I have to see it. So it's like they're motivated. It's just such a tricky game to play right now. One thing I think that's really interesting to study, though, is this was in the latest video that we made on The Lightning Thief, is looking at how they used social media, and specifically Ashley Latimer, who was running that account basically on the side, but managed to just build this huge fandom that as soon as the holidays showed around, they all started showing up. She basically created like this whole persona for the Lightning Thief Twitter. And we saw it again with Diana. It was like Diana's Twitter before Diana, but it was right off of the back of Sassy Wendy's, when Wendy's started to get a personality and all this stuff. Yeah. And so it really leaned into that. And then it just helped the following grow so much more. And I think that's why, because if you look at it, that's why Lightning Thief did so well on tour, is because it's all these people who, all those different touch points of either they listened to the cast album, or they followed it on a social, or they just really love Percy Jackson. It was like they had so many touch points that when the show finally came through, they had a bigger audience to pull from. And that's why it did so great there. But then it's just so frustrating because as soon as it got onto Broadway, then nobody came.
Nothing. Yeah.
I wish I had the answers, but it's so tough, because it's once you see one study, and then that's completely different to something else that worked.
Okay, we're going to pivot back to your channel. How do you choose what you're talking about next?
Well, something that I really realized after Burnout Summer was I was talking about things that I didn't really care about. And so it's the thing of, I want to talk about shows that I personally really like or find entertaining, because I have to trust that what I find entertaining, other people will find entertaining. But then another part of that is we go through and we look at the comments and what people are saying. Juliana, like just last week, went through and did a total scrub of all of the different things that people recommended. So looking through that,
Go ahead.
how far in advance do we plan it out?
Yeah.
It's usually about like 3 months, 3 or 2 months.
Nice.
To plan out the big docs.
I was going to say, does it take 3 months to produce it, or it does? It takes 3 months to produce each one? Holy smokes.
For the bigger ones, it takes about 3 months. So Lightning Thief was the fastest one that we've ever done, I think, which was remarkable because we did so many interviews for that one and just so much research. So I think we started that one in November, and then it came out earlier this week. So like 2.5 months for that one, but usually 3 months, just because there's so much research involved with it. And I think that's what really helps the channel stand out, is that we will go deeper than is necessary.
I love it though.
So, yeah. Well, thank you.
What is the future of the channel? What are your hopes and dreams for what Wait in the Wings will become?
Who knows? If you had asked me that last year, I would have given you an answer that is not at all where we're headed right now. But I really think it is just more leaning into listening to what everybody wants and listening to what we want. Still sticking with the documentaries. That's just making bigger and better documentaries. Hopefully down the line, we can get to a point where we make like this big official like feature length documentary that we can take out on film circuits and all that stuff. That's always been kind of a back of the mind dream. But for right now, it's just focusing on the YouTube channel. 3 videos a month is where we're headed, and just staying happy. That's really it.
How are your thumbnails so good?
I hire an artist to do it.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
I can't tell who makes them because it is a trade secret.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I would never ask you. It's just they're incredible.
It took a lot of trial and error and like trying different thumbnail artists, but this one is just, it's been consistently like, how did you come up with this? I never would have thought of that. And
Good
it's just
for
nice
you.
Because it's like, it's nice because it's finally like, that's the tone that I've wanted the whole time since we started. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable. It's great.
How many documentaries do you have now?
I can't even begin to think. I know we have 90 videos. We're at 90 videos. I don't know how many of those are docs.
What is your ideal length of video?
About 20 to 30 minutes. That seems to be the sweet spot. Because usually if it goes a little bit over, if it goes into like the 40, then that's kind of rambly, and it tells me that my focus isn't really in there. But I really think that if we can tell a story in 20 minutes, like that means that you have a clear focus. That's like King Kong. I know there was a clear focus on that one. Phantom Chandelier, all of those ones. Yeah.
Dig. Love it. Anything else that I should ask you about, that we should talk about, that you want to highlight before we wrap up?
No, just follow us on Patreon and join our speaker
That's what
series.
I was going to say. Where can
us.
people follow you?
Yeah, patreon.com/WITW. You can get a full year's worth of a speaker series for cheaper than one Broadway ticket, which I think is a pretty good deal. But then you can also follow us on Twitter at Wait Wings and on YouTube, Wait in the Wings.
Brendon, an inspiration to us all and like feeding my musical theater nerd soul. So I appreciate you and your team's work. I think it's so great. And thanks for talking.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been great.
I loved talking to Brendon. I thought this conversation was super, super fascinating. I'm curious to know what you think. Are you already a Wait in the Wings fan? If you're not, what are you doing? Go subscribe right now. And what do you think about the future of integrating digital fandoms with Broadway? To me, it just seems like there's this massive disconnect between the hundreds of thousands or millions of views that channels like these are getting with Broadway audiences. How do we integrate these two things? What do you want the future of digital theatrical spaces to look like? You know what to do. Make sure you leave a comment if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this conversation. First of all, who else do you want me to talk to? Second of all, make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. It's the surest way to let the YouTube algorithm know what wonderful humans to push this video out to, people like yourself. As always, I welcome you to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at It's Katharine Quinn. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.